Hello Varlets. In this video, I'm going to showcase all the new toys that you will be getting as a Hive Scum. We're going to take a look at what exactly these new weapons are, how they work, as well as take a look at their blessing pool and the hidden mechanics behind some of them. If you like what you see and you see what you like, consider wishlisting for the DLC via the link in the description. So let's get it on. Starting with the melee weapons, the first one we're going to look at is the Crowbar. As we saw in the reveal trailer, this is a weapon that brings blunt force trauma with a cruel twist to the battlefield. Before I get into it, I need to clear something up. The Crowbar is not a dual-wield weapon. I have been made aware that there have been some miscommunications around whether the Hive Scum is going to be getting dual-wield crowbars, and the answer to that is no. So unfortunately, your dreams of cosplaying as a certain eminence in shadow will have to be put on hold. Now, let's move on. The Crowbar is one of 3 unique melee weapons available to the Hive Scum class. It is a versatile weapon that is capable of dealing with groups of enemies and can even go toe-to-toe and bully armored single targets. Its light attacks have a fairly diagonal attack pattern with decently strong stagger force, making it ideal for bashing in heretic skulls, and its heavy attacks are also geared towards dealing with thicker groups with more forceful blows. While it can deal with unarmored enemies well enough, it does lack the penetration to effectively battle against armor. That is where the weapon special of the Crowbar comes into play. Activating your weapon special rotates your Crowbar, causing you to strike enemies with the beak of the weapon. In this mode, the Crowbar's attacks now hit twice with every strike, once on initial contact and a second time while tearing the beak out from your target. Its attack chain also becomes slightly slower and more focused on single targets, adopting an entirely overhead strike-down moveset with both light and heavy attacks. Heavy attacks in this mode also latch onto enemies and stagger them while pulling them towards you, similar to Saltspire's Billhook in a way. This, in combination with its stronger armor damage profile, allows you to absolutely bully lone armored enemies into submission, stagger locking them to death. The Crowbar also has a hidden mechanic built in. It appears to innately come with a lesser version of the Thrust Blessing. Whenever you charge your heavy attacks, you can build up stacks which increases the damage of your next attack by around 7% per stack, giving you a total of 22% extra damage if you fully charge a heavy strike. I'm not certain for sure, but I think it might also increase stagger and cleave as well. Further testing to verify this. Lastly, let's take a look at the Crowbar's blessing pool. It has an interesting selection to choose from, particularly because Can Opener is here, something currently only available on Ogrin Ripper guns. And yes, it works exactly how you imagine it to. Each hit from its special mode counts as a separate hit, applying 2 instances of brittleness per strike, making this blessing very good for ripping into armor. If you build your Hive Scum for melee combat, you can absolutely decimate armor in moments. Next, we're going to take a look at the Improvised Shivs, what are essentially Corellian's dual daggers from Vermintide 2. Now before I get into it, here is where I'm going to need to introduce you to a new mechanic that comes with the Hive Scum, Chem Toxin. Chem Toxin is a unique damage over time effect that works similarly to Soul Blaze and Bleed. It can stack up to 31 times and deals strong damage against unarmored Maniac and Flak armor, while dealing decent damage against infested Carapace and unyielding armor types. Chem Toxin is its own classification and interacts with certain talents and blessings. We'll take a look at some examples later in the video. While I won't delve too deep into the numbers, this table shows you just how devastating Chem Toxin can be, especially when stacked up against Carapace without needing rending to support it, unlike other damage over time effects. Alright, back to talking about the Shivs. First, the Hive Scum has access to 2 different marks of the Improvised Shivs. The default one is the Corkscrew one, and the other one is the Box Cutter version. Both these marks have similar light attack chains, unleashing a flurry of slashes and puncturing attacks in quick succession, capable of inflicting severe damage on unarmored enemies rapidly. Where these 2 marks differ are in its heavy attack chain. The Corkscrew version is focused on damage to single targets with an overhead strike down, along with a puncturing frontal stab. These attacks have pretty decent Carapace ADM and will be your primary combo for bringing down elites and dealing damage to tougher targets. On the other hand, the Box Cutter version has a continuous chain of inward slashes, capable of cleaving multiple targets, but does have a weaker anti-armor damage profile and doesn't fare as well as the Corkscrew version in dealing with elites. Both these weapons share the same special attack, throwing out a toxin-laced blade in an arc at a single target. This is very similar to the Zealot's throwing knife. This attack deals some initial impact damage and then applies the Chem Toxin debuff to the target hit. The number of stacks you apply with this attack depends on whether you hit them in a weak spot or not. As this table shows, body shot hits apply 4 stacks of Chem Toxin, while weak spot hits apply 6 stacks. Throwing multiple blades at the same target can cause the Chem Toxin debuff to stack, allowing you to deal massive damage if needed. Because this attack is used while having your shivs out, they also inherit the perks and blessings of the weapon, allowing you to further boost both its impact and damage over time. You can carry a maximum of 3 blades at once, and you can only get them back from special and elite kills or killing enemies with melee backstabs. Speaking of backstabs, both the shiv marks have backstab damage enabled on them, just like the combat blade. When backstabbing an enemy, light attacks deal about 9% more damage, while heavy attacks deal 25% more damage, so where you can, try to be sneaky to get more damage into your target. As for blessings, the shivs share more or less the same pool of blessings as the combat blade, minus the special attack ones. What I do want to point out is that Uncanny Strike here is a lesser version of the one found on the combat blade, so it's not as overpowered but still very useful. This weapon also has a lesser version of the Precognition Blessing as well. The last melee toy we're getting is one of the cruelest weapons available, the Bone Saw. This is a versatile weapon that can hold its own against hordes, but is also designed to bring down tanky targets, and the tankier they are, the more punishment the Bone Saw inflicts. Everything starts with the Bone Saw's attack chain. Its light attacks have a mix of diagonal slashes punctuated with an overhead strike. Its heavy chain is a strong overhead blow followed by a horizontal slash. Now, here is the key part. Like the Crowbar in its special mode, the overhead heavy strike of the Bone Saw hits twice, first upon impact, followed by pulling the Bone Saw out of the target. This matters because of the Bone Saw's unique feature. In its default state, the Bone Saw has Chem Toxins applied to its blade, allowing every hit you deal to apply a stack of Chem Toxin to every enemy hit. This mode also has a damage profile that is more suited for dealing with unarmored enemies. Since our heavy overhead strike hits twice, it applies 2 stacks. Critical hits with this weapon also apply 2 stacks of Chem Toxin, potentially letting you apply 4 stacks in a single hit. This allows you to very quickly build up stacks that will start to add up in damage, making it suited for battling against tanky targets like monsters, since you can keep hitting them until you reach the Chem Toxin stack of 31. If you need to saw through armor, then activating the Bone Saw's weapon special coats your blade with a corrosive compound, allowing every hit to apply stacks of brittleness to enemies. In addition to this, the Bone Saw's damage profile also changes to be geared towards armor damage instead, and sees a reduction to its unarmored damage in exchange for higher ADM values. Every hit from this weapon applies a stack of brittleness with every blow, and can apply a brittleness debuff of up to around 40%. This debuff is classified as a unique source of rending, and therefore can stack with other sources like Thunderous and Penetrating Flames. Check out my beginner-friendly video on learning about rending and brittleness. As for blessings, the Bone Saw has an interesting selection and even an entirely new one not found on any other weapon. Given how this weapon works, it can be built in different ways to facilitate different playstyles, making it a very flexible weapon to have in your loadout. Moving on to our range weapons, we're going to start with the dual Autopistols. Considered to be the very first dual-wield range weapon in Darktide, the dual Autopistols boast a high fire rate to unleash a storm of bullets at everything in front of it. What it lacks in raw damage, it more than makes up for it in overwhelming fire rate. This weapon is built for high-octane, close-range playstyles, and so has the innate ability to be hip-fired while sprinting. Bracing the weapon provides you with more stability and control, but at the cost of not being able to run and gun anymore. Your special action is a bash, presumably to smack targets you are sprinting at, to briefly daze them as you unload a hail of bullets into them. As of this writing, and I'm not sure if it will be fixed in time or not, the dual Autopistols doesn't appear to be affected by reload speed at all. Even piling on all the reload speed perks and blessings, my reload speed when compared to base is exactly the same. For our next range weapon, we have my favorite of the bunch, the dual Stub pistols, which I'm just going to call dual pistols from now on. These pair of guns are probably the most, if not one of the most stylish weapons added to the game. Everything from the way they look, the way they shoot, and how they reload all look so cool. My only complaint would be wanting the sound of it firing to be a little more punchier. Anyway, unlike the auto pistols, the dual pistols are designed to be used as precision weapons of sorts, trading fire rate and magazine size for superior raw damage and finesse multipliers. What's more, this weapon has enough cleave in it that it can penetrate an additional regular enemy like a poxwalker or bruiser, making it pretty efficient at gunning down groups of enemies. The weapon's special attack is the stylish trick shot where you spin your pistol around and, in doing so, briefly grants your next shot pinpoint accuracy, increased finesse damage, and stagger power. If you are used to playing with the Agrippina slug shotgun, using this trick shot as the main means of sniping down targets on the fly will feel very natural. The weapon's blessing pool also lends itself to a multitude of different possibilities depending on how you like to fit the dual pistols into your loadout and the role it will play in your build. The last of the Hive Scum's unique range weapons is the Needle Pistol. As its name implies, this weapon fires chem toxin-laced needles at enemies, injecting them with a heavy dose of chemicals that deal damage over time. The Needle Pistol has 2 firing modes as its weapon special. In its default state, or yellow mode, the Needle Pistol fires needles that apply 6 stacks of chem toxin. Landing a weak spot hit or critical hit adds an additional stack, while landing a critical weak spot hit adds 2 stacks. This debuff can stack if repeatedly fired at the same enemy, allowing you to nearly hit the chem toxin cap in 5 rounds, and allowing it to deal some hefty damage to tanky targets. Even crushers will fall to it if given enough time. On the other hand, activating your weapon special flips it into blue mode. In this state, your Needle Pistol's attacks apply only half the usual dosage, injecting enemies with 3 stacks of chem toxins instead of 6. In return, enemies that die from your chem toxins effects will explode on death and either create a small staggering explosion or apply a stack of chem toxin in a small area around them. Which effect you get will depend on which mark of the Needle Pistol you go with. The Mark II will apply a stack of chem toxin when the target dies, while the Mark VI will cause enemies to detonate upon their death, dealing minor damage and stagger. In this mode, your shots also have a slight area of effect to them, allowing you to still apply 1 stack of chem toxin to enemies near the explosion of your attacks. As for blessings, the Needle Pistol's blessing pool is very much geared for utility and support, rather than raw power. However, given that critical hits can help boost the number of stacks you are applying with each hit, that may be something you might want to look into to see if it works for you. With that, we've come to the end of this weapon showcase video. I really enjoyed messing around and exploring all the different toys this class comes with. I love that they've got some really interesting mechanics behind them, and that they are each very enjoyable to learn and use to play with. If you want to play around with these weapons when the Hive Scum class comes out, once again, consider wishlisting it from the link in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Varlets.